The Dodge Viper represents everything cool about American cars. Boasting a monstrous engine with an equally monstrous reputation, the Viper is known the world over for its power, its noise, and its willingness to bite. The first generation has, despite its temperamental handling, rightfully found a place in the hearts of car enthusiasts the world over, for its ridiculous power plant and spaceship styling. But the first generation Viper could only ever have dreamed of racing success. All of the cars were built as roadsters, meaning alongside the car's already well-documented handling difficulties, the car had all the rigidity of overcooked spaghetti, making it about as good as a racing platform as a rotting plank of wood with some wheels bolted to it. Chrysler knew that to build the Dodge brand and sell more Vipers, they had to make the step into racing. And for the second generation Viper, that's exactly what they did. This is the story of the Dodge Viper GTS-R. A few privateer efforts had been made in the early 90s to modify the first generation Viper RT10 to race. These efforts never quite worked out, for the reasons I mentioned earlier, but it got Chrysler thinking they should probably step in. The car's enormous 8-litre V10 seemed born to race, but the Viper RT10 just wasn't the car to do it. Development of the SR2 began, aiming for a 1996 model year launch. Truth be told, the changes were pretty minor. A little weight was saved here and there, and the exhaust was modified to increase power from 400 brake horsepower to a truly breathtaking 415 brake horsepower. The SR2 RT10 launched in late 1995, but the true leap forward was yet to come. Work had been going on in the background to create a Viper that could actually hold its own as a performance car. Despite sharing much of the exterior design, the 1996 Dodge Viper GTS was a true evolution of the Viper formula, being 90% new, at least according to Chrysler. Built with a more rigid coupe body style, and with a power increase to 450 brake horsepower, the Viper GTS was built for more than just highway cruises. To dispel any lingering doubts around the Viper's racing credentials, Chrysler greenlighted a racing program based around the GTS. Their hope was to raise the Viper's profile, and not just in North America, but Europe too, which would mean racing on European circuits. The team at Chrysler decided to bring in outside help to achieve this, partnering with French racing car manufacturer ORECA to build the cars. They'd be built around a purpose-made racing chassis courtesy of British chassis manufacturer Reynard, and would be powered by the all-American Chrysler 8-litre V10. It could have gone one of two ways. It was either going to be the best of both worlds, or a horrendous mismatch. Only time would tell, or maybe the title of the video. ORECA was put in full control of the European effort, from construction to racing. Dodge wasn't marketed in Europe at the time, so the car officially raced as the Chrysler Viper in Europe as opposed to the Dodge Viper in the United States, though the car itself bore no badging for either brand. Little modification needed doing to the engine. It received some modifications to squeeze a bit more power out and make sure it stayed reliable in the long endurance races. The bodywork saw relatively little modification too, seeing a rear wing, a front splitter and a rear diffuser, which gave it an undeniably aggressive look, even next to the already pretty scary road car. Kanaska Southwind had been handed the reins to the North American effort, debuting their car in the IMSA GTS-1 class at the 1996 24 Hours of Daytona, where it managed a very forgettable 29th place finish. Kanaska Southwind would join in on Team ORECA's Viper debut at the 1996 24 Hours of Le Mans, with both teams entering 2 cars each. 3 of the 4 cars were able to finish the race, with Kanaska Southwind making the most of their Viper, finishing 10th place. If you're enjoying the video so far, tap the like button. It makes a huge difference. Thank you. Viper Team ORECA ended 1996 by entering the final few rounds of the BPR Global GT Series, where it managed some middling results, finishing 8th at Brands Hatch, 9th at Spa, and 6th at Nogaro, while Kanaska Southwind wrapped up their season with an impressive 2nd in class, 6th overall finish at Mosport. 1996 hadn't seen huge success for the Viper racing program, but they weren't expecting to.
But down to the finish line they come to start lap number 2, and here comes the Dodge Viper.
Neither team had completed a full season of racing yet, but what they had done is they'd learned a hell of a lot about their new cars, knowledge that they would bring back to the track the following year, or at least that's what everyone expected to happen. Kanaska Southwind called it quits in 1997, putting an immediate end to their Viper racing program. With no replacement, responsibility for racing in North America fell into ORECA's lap. Wanting to focus their racing effort on Europe, the only North American event that ORECA entered in 1997 was the 12 Hours of Daytona. They managed a 12th place finish and then promptly went back to Europe. By this point, the BPR Global GT Series had become the FIA GT Championship.
Well down the field as he jumps the curbs, the Vipers are already going through. Lesmo 1.
And the GT1 class that ORECA had campaigned in previously was getting very hot, with the introduction of cars like the Mercedes CLK GT-R and Porsche 911 GT1. ORECA felt that their Viper probably wasn't going to be competitive against these new homologation specials, and they were probably right. The decision was taken to campaign the Viper in the lower GT2 class instead, a decision that proved prudent when ORECA immediately got a 1-2 finish in their first race.
Viper, 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 and then in 4th place Lister.
Ultimately winning the season with 7 out of 11 class victories. Despite their stellar performance in the FIA GT Championship, ORECA only managed a 5th place class finish at Le Mans in 1997. Surely a disappointment for the French team, especially given how well they'd been doing at other circuits. Team Taisan raced a Viper GTS-R in the JGTC in 1997, managing a slightly disappointing 8th place best finish. 1998 saw ORECA firm up its grip of FIA GT, winning all but one race to decisively claim the GT2 Championship victory, leaving their main competitor Porsche firmly in the dust. Not only that, but the team managed their first class win at Le Mans, a mighty milestone for the Viper project. In the UK, a team called Oftendale Racing purchased a Viper to compete in the British GT Championship, where it did exceptionally well, claiming 6 wins and championship victory for Kurt Luby and Richard Dean. Chrysler's hopes of raising the Viper's profile were working a treat, helped along by the car's inclusion in what would turn out to be one of the automotive world's most influential profile builders, Gran Turismo. The Viper GTS-R featured in the first 2 Gran Turismo games, and alongside the car's racing success, it found its way into the hearts of motorsport fans worldwide, despite only competing in the GT2 class. 1999 saw ORECA expand their campaign to include the American Le Mans series, marking the first proper full-season attempt for the Viper in North America to date. The car did exceedingly well, winning 6 rounds of the competition to bring home championship victory. They didn't forget about FIA GT either, claiming 9 wins for a 3rd consecutive class victory. Additionally, Chamberlain Engineering, another Viper customer team, took 2nd place in the championship. 1999 also saw ORECA take their 2nd consecutive class win at Le Mans, with Vipers from other teams populating the top 6 finishing spots in the class. And to top things off, Zaxby's Viper racing effort won the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring too. It was a good year for the Viper. It's easy to write off some of these wins on the grounds that there was now so many Vipers competing that of course one of them won. The story is very similar to that of the Nissan R32 Skyline GT-R. However, it's worth remembering that the only reason customers wanted to race these cars in the first place was because of the superiority it had shown over its competition in the years preceding. The success was well earned, and I'm sure Chrysler were over the moon. For the 2000 season, ORECA chose to focus their racing effort in North America, as the European grids were getting congested with Viper customer teams. Chevrolet had just introduced their brand new Corvette race car, the first car in a while that looked to directly threaten the Viper's throne. Despite the hype around the Corvettes, however, ORECA managed to win the 24 Hours of Daytona and would go on to win the championship with 10 victories. Though it must be said that by the end of the season, the Corvettes had become a serious threat. Despite ORECA's confidence in the Viper customer teams in FIA GT, all of them were caught off guard by the 5-race winning Lister Storm, which took championship victory, relegating Vipers to 2nd and 3rd in the championship. 2001 saw Chrysler officially withdraw their support for the Viper project. In fairness to them, it had now been going for 5 years, and their focus had shifted to a new LMP project with ORECA. Similarly, with ORECA also being tied up with this new LMP project, all future Viper campaigns would be carried out by privateer teams. And boy, was there a lot of them. For simplicity's sake, I'm not going to go through all of them, just the ones that achieved something of note. Labre Competition won the 2001 FIA GT2 Championship, beating another Viper customer team with 3 victories. Hales Racing would take victory in the British GT Championship, defeating the Lister Storm and restoring the Viper to the top of the food chain.
Julian Bailey will take second. Richard Dean, Kurt Luby winning the race overall and winning GT2 there.
And Zakspeed would manage to win the 24 Hours of the Nürburgring again with their trusty Viper. 2002 and 2003 saw many Vipers compete, but none of them managed the same caliber of result as had been achieved in the years before. And by 2004, most teams were beginning to phase them out. This, however, represents 8 years of hard racing, with many of them being very successful for the Viper. Despite being built in France around a British chassis, the Viper GTS-R did introduce a new generation to what American manufacturers can do. Perhaps even dispelling some of the American cars can't go round bend jokes that European racing fans love so much. The Viper proved it could not only go round bends, but it could do so faster than a Porsche and look good doing it. The Viper had many battles in its day, one of the most exciting being with the Lister Storm. Intrigued? Check out the story of that ridiculous V12 monster on screen now. Thanks for watching, hit the like button if you enjoyed, and until next time, goodbye.